Yasodanandana Braja Janarandana Yasodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Om Gyana Timarandasya Gyana Gyana Chalakaya Chakshuvinitam Tasmai Sri Guru Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Parvato Narado Domyo Bhagavan Vadunaya Brihadsful Vardrakta Tasisyo Renuka Sutta Ashtishta Indra Pramadas Tritu Gritsmado Sita Dakshavan Gautamo Trista Kosika Ta Sudarshana Parvato Narada Domyo Bhagavan Badurayana Brihaspo Brihad Bhartraja Sasisyo Renuka Sutta Vasista Indra Pramadas Trito Gritamado Stita Dakshivan Gautama Trista Kosit Gota Sudarshana Namyo Bhagavan Padre Sodardara All the sages like Parvata Muni, Narada, Domya, Vyasa, the incarnation of God, Brihasdasya, Bhardraj, and Parshuram, and disciples, Vasista, Indrapramad, Trita, Ritsamada, Asita, Takshavan, Gautama, Atri, Kosika, and Sudarshan were present. So this is an extremely long verse and purport, so take up most of the time. But before we get into that, I just wanted to mention regarding Bhisma, who all these great sages, incarnations of God, even, came to show their respects with such a great personality. And one thing that we should understand, Bhisma Dev couldn't be killed. He wasn't dead. He was lying on the bed of arrows. But he had his own choice of the time of death. So even Arjuna could pierce him with arrows because of Krishna's arrangement to get Bhisma to drop his bow, because he didn't want to kill someone who had been born as a woman in the previous birth. But he couldn't be killed. He could choose his own time of death. So he was such a great personality. And we should understand, we might want to just get into a little bit about the birth of Bhismadev, how he came to appear in this situation where he renounced the kingship. He remained celibate his whole life. And he was just an example of renunciation and knowledge to everyone. And he was the greatest fighter that couldn't be defeated in any way except by the machinations of Sri Krishna to fulfill his desire. But Bhismadev in his previous life was one of the 8 Vasus, a celestial being with the power to fly in the air without a spaceship. And he was the leader of the 8 Vasus. And they were passing through an area where Vasista, a great sage and Muni, had his hermitage. And he had a cow, a Kamadenu, that could fulfill all desires. Something like in the spiritual sky. Oh, sorry.
हरे कृष्ण। तो आज का जो श्लोक है उसका अनुवाद तात्पर्य बहुत ही बड़ा है, उसमें ही चर्चा करें तो बहुत समय चला जाएगा। लेकिन जब भीष्मदेव प्रयाण करने जा रहे थे तो ऐसे सभी जो महान भक्त हैं, भगवान के अवतार हैं, वो सब उनको सम्मान प्रदर्शित करने आए थे। अर्जुन ने भगवान कृष्ण के आयोजन द्वारा भीष्मदेव को बाणों की सैया पर सुला तो दिया था, जिससे उन्होंने अपना धनुष बाण छोड़ दिया, लेकिन फिर भी उनको इच्छा मृत्यु का वरदान रहने के कारण वह अभी भी जीवित थे। तो आज के इस प्रवचन में हम देखेंगे कि भीष्मदेव उनका प्राकट्य किस प्रकार से हुआ, किस प्रकार से वह ब्रह्मचर्य का व्रत लिए और किस प्रकार से वह त्याग, ज्ञान और सर्वश्रेष्ठ योद्धा का अत्यंत अच्छा उदाहरण थे। भीष्मदेव को कृष्ण के अलावा कोई नहीं हरा सकता था। देखेंगे भीष्मदेव अपने पुराने जन्म में 8 वसुओं में सबसे प्रमुख थे। एक बार वो हवा में उड़ते हुए जा रहे थे और वहां पे उनको वशिष्ठ का आश्रम दिखता है, जहां पर उनके पास एक कामधेनु रहती जो सभी इच्छाओं को पूरी करती थी।
So as they were passing Vasista's home, one of the wives of another Vasu said that she wanted the cow so that she could enjoy the benefits of this Kamadenu.
तो जब वो लोग वहां से हवाई यात्रा करते हुए जा रहे थे तो एक वसु की पत्नी ने कहा कि हमको ये गाय चाहिए जैसे हम इसकी सुविधाओं का लाभ ले सकें।
So somehow Bhisma gave approval to snatch the cow.
और किसी प्रकार से भीष्म ने अपनी सहमति दे दी कि गाय चुरा ली जाए।
Vasista was away from home at the time, but when he came home, he could understand everything because he had great powers and he could see what had happened.
तो वशिष्ठ उस समय घर से बाहर थे, लेकिन जब वो घर वापस आए तो समझ गए कि क्या हुआ है अपनी महान योग शक्तियों के बल पर।
So Vasista cursed the 8 Vasus, but he didn't curse them all the same because Bhisma was the leader. His curse was much more significant than the others.
तो वशिष्ठ ने सभी 8 वसुओं को श्राप दिया, लेकिन सभी को समान श्राप नहीं मिला क्योंकि भीष्म सभी वसुओं के नेता थे, इसलिए उनको सबसे कड़ा श्राप मिला।
The Vasus were cursed to be born as mortals on earth.
उनको इस पृथ्वी लोक में एक बद्ध जीव के रूप में जन्म लेने का श्राप मिला।
But the seven subordinate Vasus were cursed through only a short stay.
तो 7 वसुओं को सिर्फ अल्पकाल के लिए पृथ्वी पर रहना था।
And then they could return to their celestial abodes.
और उसके बाद वे अपने दैवी लोक में वापस जा सकते थे।
But because Bhisma was the leader, Vasista cursed him to have a long life on earth.
लेकिन चूंकि भीष्म उनमें प्रमुख थे, इसलिए उनको सबसे ज्यादा लंबी जीवन मिला पृथ्वी पर।
So Bhisma's mother Ganga had agreed to marry Bhisma's father, Maharaj Satana.
भीष्म की माता ने सहमति कर ली थी कि वो महाराज शांतनु से विवाह करेंगी,
But she specified certain conditions, one of which was that he would never question whatever she did.
लेकिन विवाह के पहले उन्होंने कई सारी शर्तें की थी, जिसमें से एक था कि मैं जो भी करूंगी उसमें कुछ तुम टोकना नहीं।
So every year for 7 years, a child was born, one of the 7 Vasas.
तो हर साल 7 साल तक लगातार एक पुत्र जो कि वसु था जन्म लेता था,
And she would take the child just after birth to the Ganga and drown him.
और वो अपने उस संतान को ले जाती थी और गंगा में फेंक देती थी।
Now one might think this is very harsh.
और कोई एक सोचता था ये तो बहुत ही कठोर हृदय वाला काम है,
This was her mercy, because as soon as she drowned them, they became liberated.
लेकिन ये उनकी कृपा थी, जैसे ही उन्होंने उनको डुबो दिया वह मुक्त हो जाते थे।
So her husband Maharaj Santanu had no understanding what it was, but he couldn't question her because he had promised.
तो महाराज शांतनु को कुछ समझ में नहीं आता था, लेकिन अपने शर्त के कारण वह कुछ पूछ नहीं पाते थे।
So after 7 years and 7 Vasas were all drowned, one after the other, then Bhisma was born.
तो 7 साल 7 वसु का जन्म हुआ, फिर भीष्म का जन्म हुआ।
But he wasn't presented to his father right away. He was first trained in all the arts.
तो पहले उनको पहले सभी युद्ध कौशल सिखाए गए, फिर वो अपने पिता के पास जाकर मिले।
In fact, he was trained by Parsuram, the incarnation of Krishna, to fight.
उनको परशुराम द्वारा शिक्षा मिली युद्ध कौशल सीखने की,
He became the invincible warrior.
और वह एक अजेय योद्धा बने।
So it is said that no one ever had a son that was so prepared to take over the throne.
ऐसा कहते हैं कभी भी कोई ऐसी संतान का जन्म नहीं हुआ था जो उस राज जगद्दी को इतने अच्छे से संभाल सके,
As Bhisma did.
जैसे भीष्म देव थे।
But he was so renounced that he gave up this kingdom and took a vow of celibacy, that he would never have an heir to the kingdom.
लेकिन उनमें इतना वैराग्य था कि उन्होंने अपना राज्य छोड़ दिया और आजीवन ब्रह्मचर्य रहने की प्रतिज्ञा कर ली,
So that his father could marry another wife, and that wife's children would become the heirs to the kingdom.
क्योंकि जैसे उनके पिता जो हैं वो एक दूसरी स्त्री से विवाह कर सके और उसके पुत्र फिर राजगद्दी संभाल सके।
Originally his name was Devavrata, but after he took these vows, his name became Bhisma, which means one of terrible vows, because it was considered so horrendous that someone would renounce the kingdom on such a vow.
मूलतः उनका नाम देवव्रत था, लेकिन ऐसी कठिन प्रतिज्ञा लेने के कारण उनका नाम भीष्म पड़ गया, क्योंकि किसी से ऐसी कठिन प्रतिज्ञा की आशा नहीं की जाती।
So in the purport, Prabhupada describes all these munis. Parvata Muni is considered to be one of the oldest sages. He is almost always a constant companion of Narada Muni. They are also spacemen, competent to travel in the air without the help of any material vehicle. Parvata Muni is also a Devarshi, or a great sage amongst the demigods, like Narada. He was present along with Narada at the sacrificial ceremony of Maharaj Janmanjaya, son of Maharaj Parikshit. In this sacrifice, all the snakes of the world were to be killed. Parvata Muni and Narada Muni are called Gandharvas, also because they can travel in the air, singing the glories of the Lord. Since they can travel in the air, they observe Draupadi's Svayamvara ceremony, selecting her own husband from the air. Like Narada Muni, Parvata Muni also used to visit the royal assembly in the heaven of King Indra. You want to translate? What? Okay. In this sacrifice, all the snakes, called Gandharvas, since they can travel in the air, they observe Draupadi's Svayambara ceremony from the air. Like Narada Muni, Parvata Muni also used to visit the royal assembly in the heaven of King Indra. As a Gandharva, sometimes he visited the royal assembly of Kuvera, one of the important demigods. Both Narada and Parvata were once in trouble with the daughter of Maharaj Sanjaya. Maharaj Sanjaya got the benediction of a son by Parvata Muni. Narada Muni is inevitably associated with the narrations of the Puranas. He is described in the Bhagavatam. In his previous life, he was the son of a maidservant, but by good association with pure devotees, he became enlightened in devotional service, and in the next life he became a perfect man, comparable with himself only. This is a very important point that Srila Prabhupada is making here, that Narada Muni was the son of a maidservant. So by the standards of the caste system, he would never have been allowed into Jagannath Temple because of his birth. But this shows the original Vedic system was not by birth, but was by qualification. And that's a major point that the Krishna consciousness movement has established in India and in the world. Because Srila Prabhupada has transformed the lowest of persons from the Western world, persons addicted to all kinds of sinful activities that we need not go into in great detail. But we know that he has transformed them into Brahmanas by the power of his spiritual qualifications. And this same thing is shown here, as Narada Muni was born the child of a maidservant, yet he was elevated to the highest position. So this is nothing new Srila Prabhupada is instigating. This is the Vedic system, just that people don't understand it. So he is creating the understanding of the true Vedic culture, not the one that's manufactured by the higher caste to maintain their so-called superiority, although they don't even practice the Brahminical culture. So anyway.
तो जैसे कि हम देखते हैं कि नारद मुनि को पहले दासी के पुत्र में जन्मे थे, लेकिन शुद्ध भक्तों की संगति से वह एक महान भक्त बन गए। तो अगर हम देखें कि अगर इस प्रकार से देखा जाए तो जैसा कि नियम है कि निम्न वर्ण के लोगों को जगन्नाथ मंदिर में नहीं प्रवेश मिलता, इस हिसाब से नारद मुनि को भी नहीं मिलता। लेकिन नहीं, यहाँ पर जो वैदिक प्रथा यह है कि कोई भी व्यक्ति अगर वह भक्ति के नियमों का पालन करता है तो वह सबसे ऊंची सफलता प्राप्त कर पाता है। हम देखते हैं कि श्रील प्रभुपाद सबसे पतित लोगों को पश्चिमी देशों से उनका उद्धार करके उन्हें सबसे ऊंचे स्तर पर ले गए हैं। तो श्रील प्रभुपाद ने कुछ भी नया नहीं किया है। लोग ये नहीं समझते कि ये वैदिक सभ्यता में यह सब दिया गया है। कोई भी नियम वह नहीं होता जो कि ऊंचे वर्ण के लोग बनाते, नियम वह होता है जो वेदों में दिया गया होता है।
In the Mahabharata, his name is mentioned in many places. He is the principal Devarshi, or the chief sage amongst the demigods. He is the son and disciple of Brahmaji, and from him the disciplic succession in the line of Brahma has been spread. He initiated Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and many celebrated devotees of the Lord. He initiated even Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedic literatures, and from Vyasadeva, Madhvacharya was initiated, and thus the Madhva Sampradaya, in which the Gaudiya Sampradaya is also included, has spread all over the universe. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu belonged to this Madhva Sampradaya. Therefore, Brahmaji, Narada, Vyasa, down to Madhva, Chaitanya, and the Goswamis all belong to the same line of disciplic succession. Naradaji has instructed many kings from time immemorial. In the Bhagavatam, we can see that he instructed Prahlad Maharaj while he was in the womb of his mother. And he instructed Vasudeva, father of Krishna, as well as Maharaj Yudhishthira. So we are also in this disciplic succession. So we're not creating something new. We are reinvigorating the disciplic succession through Srila Prabhupada's teachings.
तो हम भी नारद मुनि की गुरु शिष्य परंपरा में हम कुछ नया नहीं कर रहे हैं, सिर्फ उन्हीं का अनुसरण कर रहे हैं.
Domya, the great sage who practiced severe penances at Uttachaka Tirtha and was appointed royal priest of the Pandava kings. He acted as a priest in many religious functions of the Pandavas, Samskar, and also each of the Pandavas was attended by him at the betrothal of Draupadi. He was present even during the exile of the Pandavas and used to advise them in circumstances when they were perplexed. He instructed them how to live incognito for 1 year, and his instructions were strictly followed by the Pandavas during that time. His name is mentioned also when the general funeral ceremony was performed after the Battle of Kurukshetra. In the Sasana Parva of Mahabharata, he gave very elaborate religious instructions to Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was actually the right type of priest of a household, for he could guide the Pandavas on the right path of religion. A priest is meant for guiding the householder progressively in the right path of ashrama dharma, or the occupational duty of a particular caste. There's practically no difference between the family priest and the spiritual master. The sages, saints, and brahmanas were especially meant for such functions. Badarayan Vyasadeva, he is known as Krishna, Krishna Dvaipayana, Satyavati Sutta, Parasarya, Parasarmaja, Badarayana, Veda Vyas, etc. He was the son of Mahamuni Parasar in the womb of Satyavati prior to her betrothal with Maharaj Santanu, the father of the great general, grandfather Bhisma. He is a powerful incarnation of Narayan, and he broadcasts the Vedic wisdom to the world. As such, Vyasadeva is offered respects before one chants the Vedic literature, especially the Puranas. So Prabhupada says here about this incarnation of God, Vyasadeva, that he broadcast the Vedam wisdom to the world. So who is the Vyasadeva of our age? Srila Prabhupada. Because on the instructions of his Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who wanted this Krishna consciousness pushed in the Western world, Srila Prabhupada has translated so many Vedic literatures and broadcast them all over the world. We see they're available, broadcast literally through YouTube, through audio, audio books, every technology he's engaging in Krishna's service to spiritualize it. And therefore, broadcasting this message to every corner of the world, which actually he has accomplished. And pick up all these souls that are attracted to this message and engage them fully in Krishna consciousness. Because like the farmer plows the field and gets it ready for the seeds, Srila Prabhupada has plowed the earth with these teachings of Krishna consciousness and Vedic wisdom. And we simply have to go and water these seeds that he's planted everywhere in the world. So he's such a great personality that he can be even compared to Vyasadeva in the way that he's spreading his teaching.
तो हम देखते हैं कि यहाँ पर व्यास देव वो भगवान के अवतार हैं और सारे विश्व में वैदिक ज्ञान का प्रसार करते हैं। तो अभी आधुनिक युग में श्रील प्रभुपाद हैं, वह आधुनिक व्यास देव हैं, क्योंकि अपने गुरु महाराज के निर्देश पर जिनकी इच्छा थी कि पश्चिमी देशों में कृष्ण भावनामृत का प्रचार हो, उन्होंने कई सारी पुस्तकें अनुवाद की और उनका प्रसार भी किया। अभी हम देखते हैं वास्तव में इनका प्रसार किस प्रकार से हो रहा है, यूट्यूब के माध्यम से, ऑडियो बुक के माध्यम से, हर एक तकनीक का आध्यात्मिकरण करके वह देश के कोने कोने में प्रचार करवा रहे हैं। तो अब हमारे सिर्फ एक ही कर्तव्य है कि हम जाएं और ऐसे बद्ध आत्माओं को पकड़ें और उनको इस संदेश के प्रति आकर्षित करें। जैसे किसान होता है, वह हल चला के जमीन तैयार कर देता है उसमें बीज डालने के लिए, उसी तरीके से श्रील प्रभुपाद ने हमको सब कुछ देकर पूरा से पूरा व्यवस्था कर दी है। अब हमको जैसे किसान को सिर्फ पानी देने पे ही पेड़ आने लगते हैं बीज में से, उसी तरह से हमें बस जहाँ जहाँ भी उन्होंने बीज रोपे हैं वहाँ पे जाके प्रचार करना है।
So in the future, Srila Prabhupada will be considered the Vyasadeva of the modern age for broadcasting this message so far and wide. Others tried. In 1933, Bhaktisiddhanta sent some of his disciples to London, but they had no effect. I mean, we know of no devotees that were made. But Srila Prabhupada went on his own with no money, just himself, to the Western world, and he transformed it to the sound of Hare Krishna mantra. And he had made thousands of disciples, which he then used to propagate this movement in India, which is his own project. And we can see how successful it is, with hundreds of huge temples all over India and spreading every day even more. So we cannot ever even estimate how great Srila Prabhupada is, because we see what he has done. Seeing is believing. So if you see with the open eyes, you'll be able to appreciate the effect that Srila Prabhupada has had on the world. And his fame will grow and grow, and I don't even know who you would compare it to. Jesus is very famous, but Srila Prabhupada is giving a lot more information than Jesus. Jesus gave basic principles, but Srila Prabhupada is giving us a complete science of how to perfect our lives. And no one can place a value on that. So anyway.
तो हम देखते हैं कि भविष्य में श्रील प्रभुपाद को ही व्यासदेव के रूप में जाना जाएगा। और 1933 में श्रील भक्ति सरस्वती ठाकुर ने लंदन में अपने शिष्यों को भेजा था, लेकिन उसका कोई प्रभाव नहीं हुआ। लेकिन श्रील प्रभुपाद खुद से गए बिना पैसे के, और उन्हें कितने लोगों के जीवन में परिवर्तन कर दिया। उन्होंने हजारों शिष्य बनाए जो अभी पूरी दुनिया में प्रचार कर रहे हैं। और अभी हम देखते हैं भारत में सैकड़ों बड़े बड़े मंदिर हैं, और यह जो आंदोलन है धीरे धीरे बढ़ता ही जा रहा है। समझ ही नहीं सकते कि श्रील प्रभुपाद कितने महान है, और श्रील प्रभुपाद का हम प्रभाव दुनिया पे क्या है यह हम वास्तव में नहीं समझ सकते हैं। उनकी तुलना किससे कर सकते हैं? दुनिया में लोग जीसस को बहुत ही ज्यादा जाना जाता है, लेकिन हम देखते हैं कि उन्होंने बहुत ही मूलभूत सिद्धांत दिए। श्रील प्रभुपाद ने हमको पूर्ण ज्ञान दिया है।
Just repeat that. He's a powerful incarnation of Narayan, and he broadcasts the Vedic wisdom to the world. As such, Vyasadeva is offered respects before one chants Vedic literature, especially the Puranas. Sukadeva Goswami was his son, and rishis like Sampriyana were his disciples in different branches of the Vedas. He is the author of the great epic Mahabharata and the great transcendental literature Bhagavatam. The Brahma Sutras, the Vedanta Sutras, or Vajrayana Sutras were compiled by him. Among sages, he is the most respected author by dint of severe penances. When he wanted to record the great epic Mahabharata for the welfare of all people in the age of Kali, he was feeling the necessity of a powerful writer who could take up his dictation. By the order of Brahmaji, Sri Ganesh took up the charge of noting down the dictation on the condition that Vyasadeva would not stop dictation for a moment. The Mahabharata was thus compiled by the joint endeavor of Vyas and Ganesh. By the order of his mother, Satyavrati, who was later married to Maharaja Santanu, and by the request of Bhismadev, the eldest son of Maharaja Santanu, by his first wife, the Ganges, he begot 3 brilliant sons, whose names are Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura. The Mahabharata was compiled by Vyasadeva after the battle of Kurukshetra and after the death of all the heroes of Mahabharata. It was first spoken in the royal assembly of Maharaj Janmanjaya, the son of Maharaj Parikshit. Brihadasva, an ancient sage who used to meet Maharaj Yudhisthira now and then. First of all, he met Maharaj Yudhisthira at Kamyavana. This sage narrated the history of Maharaj Nala. There is another Brihadasva who is the son of Ikshvaku dynasty. Bhardraj. He is one of the 7 great rishis and was present at the time of the birth ceremony of Arjuna. The powerful rishi sometimes undertook severe penances on the shore of the Ganges, and his ashram is still celebrated at Prayagadama. It is learned that this rishi, while taking bath in the Ganges, happened to meet Ritachi, one of the beautiful society girls of heaven, and thus he discharged semen, which was kept and preserved in an earthen pot, and from which Drona was born. So Drona Acharya is the son of Bhardraj Muni. Others say that Bhardraj, the father of Drona, is a different person from Maharshi Bhardraj. He was a great devotee of Brahma. Once he approached Dronacharya and requested him to stop the battle of Kurukshetra. Parshuram, or Renuka Sutta, he is the son of Maharshi Jamadagni and Srimati Renuka. Thus he is known as Renuka Sutta. He is one of the powerful incarnations of God, and he killed the Kshatriya community as a whole 21 times. With the blood of the Kshatriyas, he pleased the souls of his forefathers. Later on, he underwent severe penances at the Mahendra Parvata. After taking the whole earth from the Kshatriyas, he gave it in charity to Kasyapa Muni. Parshuram instructed the Dhanurveda, the science of fighting, to Dronacharya, because he happened to be a Brahmana. He was present during the coronation of Maharaj Yudhisthira, and he celebrated the function along with other great rishis. Parshuram was so old that he met both Rama and Krishna at different times. He fought with Rama, but accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He also praised Arjuna when he saw him with Krishna. When Bhishma refused to marry Amba, who wanted him to become her husband, Amba met Parshuram. And by her request only, he asked Bhishma to accept her as his wife. Bhishma refused to obey his order, although he was one of the spiritual masters of Bhishma. Parshuram fought with Bhishma when Bhishma neglected his warning. Both of them fought very severely, and at last Parshuram was pleased with Bhishma and gave him the benediction of becoming the greatest fighter in the world. Vasishtha, the great celebrated sage amongst the Brahmanas, well known as Brahmarshi Vasishtha Deva. He's a prominent figure in both the Ramayana and Mahabharata periods. He celebrated the coronation ceremony of the personality of Godhead, Sri Rama. He was present also on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He could approach all the higher and lower planets, and his name is also connected with this history of Hiranyakashipu. There was a great tension between him and Vishwamitra, who wanted his Kamadhenu, wish-fulfilling cow. Vasishtha Muni refused to spare his Kamadhenu, and for this Vishwamitra killed his 100 sons. As a perfect Brahmana, he tolerated all the taunts of Vishwamitra. Once he tried to commit suicide on account of Vishwamitra's torture, but all his attempts were unsuccessful. He jumped from a hill, but the stones on which he fell became a stack of cotton, and thus he was saved. He jumped into the ocean, but the waves washed him ashore. He jumped into the river, but the river also washed him ashore. Thus all his suicide attempts were unsuccessful. He was one of the 7 rishis and husband of Arundhati, the famous star. Indra Pramada, another celebrated rishi. Trita, one of the 3 sons of Prajapati Gautama. He was the 3rd son, and his other 2 brothers were known as Ekat and Dita. All the brothers were great sages and strict followers of the principles of religion. By dint of severe penances, they were promoted to Brahmaloka. Once Trita Muni fell into a well. He was an organizing worker of many sacrifices, and one of the great sages. He also came to show respect to Bhishmaji at his deathbed. He was one of the 7 sages in the Varuna Loka. He hailed from the western country of the world. As such, most probably he belonged to the European countries. At that time, the whole world was under one Vedic culture. Read Samada, one of the sages of the heavenly kingdom. He was a close friend of Indra, the king of heaven. And he was as great as Brihaspati. He used to visit the royal assembly of Maharaja Yudhishthira. And he also visited the place where Bhishmadev breathed his last. Sometimes he explained the glories of Lord Shiva before Maharaja Yudhishthira. He was the son of Vitahavya, and he resembled in features the body of Indra. Sometimes the enemies of Indra mistook him to be Indra and arrested him. He was a great scholar of the Rig Veda, and he was highly respected by the Brahmana community. He lived a life of celibacy and was powerful in every respect. Asita, who was a king of the same name, but here in the Asita mentioned, is the Asita Devala Rishi, a great powerful sage at the time. He explained to his father 1,500,000 verses from the Mahabharata. He was one of the members of the snake sacrifice of Maharaja Janmanjay. He was also present during the coronation ceremony of Maharaja Yudhisthira, along with the other great rishis. He also gave Yudhisthira instructions while he was on the Jana hill. He was also one of the devotees of Lord Shiva. Kakspan, one of the sons of Gautama Muni and the father of the great sage Chandra Kosika. He was one of the members of parliament of Maharaj Yudhisthira. Atri Muni was a great Brahmana sage and one of the mental sons of Brahmaji. Brahmaji is so powerful that simply by thinking of a son, he can have it. These sons are known as Manasa Putra. Out of 7 Manasa Putra of Brahmaji, and out of the 7 great Brahmana sages, Atri was one. In his family, the great Pracheta was also born. Atri Muni had 2 Kshatriya sons who became kings. King Astama is one of them. He is counted as one of the 21 Prajapatis. His wife's name was Anasuya, and he helped Maharaj Parikshit in his great sacrifices. Kosika, one of the permanent rishi members in the royal assembly of Maharaj Yudhisthira. He sometimes met Lord Krishna. There are several other sages of the same name. Sudarshan, this wheel which is accepted by the personality of Godhead, Vishnu or Krishna, as his personal weapon, is the most powerful weapon, greater than the Brahmastras or similar other disastrous weapons. In the Vedic literatures, it is said that Agni Dev, the fire god, presented this weapon to Lord Sri Krishna. But factually, this weapon is eternally carried by the Lord. Agni Deva presented this weapon to Krishna in the same way that Rukmini was given by Maharaj Rukman to the Lord. The Lord accepts such presentations from his devotees, even though such presentations are eternally his property. There is an elaborate description of this weapon in the Adi Parva of the Mahabharata. Lord Shri Krishna used his weapon to kill Sisupal, a rival of the Lord. He also killed Salva by this weapon, and he wanted his friend Arjuna to use it to kill his enemies. So that's the end of this long purport. And there's a very important lesson in this last paragraph. Srila Prabhupada is showing us how Krishna accepts offerings from his devotees that are his to begin with. So everything belongs to Krishna. So what can we actually give him that is ours except our devotion? That's the only thing we can give Krishna. And that is what Krishna wants. That is what he enjoys, devotion of his devotees. And this is a reciprocal relationship. We devote ourselves to Krishna, and we attain the bliss of that association. We don't need anything more than that. We don't need anything from Krishna except to accept our service. And when he accepts our service, that gives the devotees great bliss. The example in our line is the residents of Vrindavan, who their life and soul was just Krishna. And that's all that they cared about. And when the cowherd girls heard the sound of Krishna's flute, they might have been taking care of their child, they might have been serving dinner to their husband, they might have been washing clothes, whatever they were doing, they left it to run for Krishna, to get close to Krishna, and to enjoy his association with Sri Radha. And they didn't want association for themselves, but just to see Krishna and Radharani together. That was their highest pleasure. And in this verse, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that everything belongs to Krishna, but still we give it back to him because he accepts, as in the Bhagavad Gita he said, offer me with love a leaf, a flower, a fruit, and I will accept it. So that devotion is what we're trying to develop. And that's a great lesson that Srila Prabhupada is teaching us. After this long descriptions of all the meanings, but that's the most important thing. All right, well, any questions?
हरे कृष्णा। तो ये तात्पर्य में सबसे अंतिम पैराग्राफ में श्रील प्रभुपाद बताते हैं कि यद्यपि कृष्ण के पास सब कुछ है, लेकिन फिर भी वह अपने भक्तों द्वारा दी गई भेंट को स्वीकार करते हैं। तो वैसे देखा जाए तो हमारा इस दुनिया में कुछ है ही नहीं, सब कुछ भगवान का ही है, लेकिन फिर भी कृष्ण हमसे हमारा सिर्फ भक्ति चाहते हैं। और जब हम उनको अपने भाव उनको अर्पित करते हैं तो वह उसमें आनंद लेते हैं। तो भक्त जो है वो भगवान के प्रति सिर्फ भक्ति ही करना चाहता है और उससे अतिरिक्त वह कुछ भी नहीं चाहता। और जब भगवान भक्त की सेवा स्वीकार करते हैं तो इससे भक्त को महान आनंद मिलता है। इसका हम उदाहरण देखते हैं कि जितने भी वृंदावन वासी वो सिर्फ भगवान की सेवा करना चाहते हैं। हम गोपियों को देखते हैं, वह कुछ भी काम करती रहे, लेकिन जैसे ही वह भगवान की बांसुरी की धुन सुनती हैं तो चाहे वह अपने बच्चों का ख्याल रख रही हूँ, पति की सेवा कर रही हूँ, कपड़े धुल रही हूँ, कुछ भी कर रही हूँ, वह सब कुछ छोड़ के कृष्ण के पास चली जाती हैं। और वह कृष्ण के पास अपने आनंद के लिए नहीं जाती हैं, वह उनका जो सर्वोत्तम आनंद है वह है राधा और कृष्ण को एक साथ देखना। तो वह भगवान के आनंद के लिए वहां पर चली जाती है अपना सब कुछ छोड़कर। तो इस प्रकार से हम देखते हैं कि सब कुछ यद्यपि भगवान कृष्ण का है, फिर भी हम उनको अर्पित करते हैं। और जैसा भगवान भगवद गीता में बताते हैं कि हम उनको पत्र पुष्प ऐसी चीजें प्रेम से चाहें तो वह स्वीकार करते हैं। तो इस लंबे तात्पर्य के बाद हमको यह सीखने को मिल रहा है कि हमें सब कुछ भगवान कृष्ण को अर्पित करना चाहिए और भगवान के प्रति धीरे धीरे भक्ति विकसित करनी चाहिए।
Thank you, Your Grace, for a really interesting and very thought-provoking class. Truly, Srila Prabhupada is the modern day Vyasadeva. Thank you very much. I have a question regarding the vow of Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev took a terrible vow. But then, when Parshuram asked him to accept Amba, he refused. Now, the order of one's spiritual master is one's life and soul. So, even though he was the spiritual master, Bhishma Dev refused to accept that and stuck to his vow. How can we understand this? Because Bhishma Dev is Mahajan also. I'm just confused a little bit.
That's a very interesting point because I was thinking the same thing. Why don't you give the mic to Maharaj? Maybe Maharaj has an explanation for
that. Well, we can look at it from this angle that Parasuram was his martial guru. So, in that sense, it wasn't his Diksha guru in that sense. It was his martial guru. So, you might say that's in a different level of guru. So, to refuse your martial guru might be considered to be okay under circumstances if there is a higher principle involved, which it appears to be in this case. But we can't say that he was his Diksha guru because he was a Vasu from the heavenly planets.
Thank you, Maharaj.
That's as best as I can do. Maybe someone else can add to it.
Satisfies you. And most of this lecture was Srila Prabhupada's words. So I don't deserve any credit. It's probably one of the longest purports in 20 of the Srimad Bhagavatam verses. But Prabhupada went to great detail to give us all that information. Any other questions? Hare Krishna. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.